It's good. We are here. Welcome everybody to the rally of the March for Actual Lives. If you are like, who are these people and what are they doing? We are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people strong who have come together to take on the March for Life, which is the largest anti-abortion march in the country. It is the 47th anniversary of that march. And every single year, anti-abortion extremists descend on Washington, D.C. and gather 100,000 people to march and spew vitriol and create the chaos and really add to, as we talk about this narrative that's happening now with disinformation, and we're talking about conspiracy theories, and we're talking about fomenting and inflaming rhetoric that causes people to get super angry. Oftentimes these anti-abortion people, they get a pass, right? They're respectable, they get a pass. Well, guess what? Because of our crack research team here at Abortion Access Front, we discovered that many of these same extremists that were at the Capitol coup were either participating heavily or cheerleading heavily in the name of life to destroy the Capitol and terrorize the people there and overthrow our democracy. And so this march that we are protesting today, that's virtual, is normally live and normally today. And they didn't cancel this march live until 10 days before the march. And the thing that's so insidious about it is that there was no media outrage around the fact that on the books for the DC parks were permits to allow 100,000 people, many of them who were part of the same movement after the Capitol, was supposed to happen. And it wasn't until there was pressure from organizations like ours, Repro Action, We Testify, who really put pressure on the media. And V, you're our communications director. I want everybody to welcome wholeheartedly Davida, our communications director. Hello,
everybody. What's poppin'? What's poppin'?
Lady A, talk to the people about you as a comms person and your frustration, and as a Black woman and as an activist, your frustration around knowing that these intersections have existed forever and having it just lay there silently in the media and also just in other activist spaces.
Totally. I mean, thanks for that. And I have to say, one of the biggest challenges and frustrations is the fact that there is very little coverage of the intersectionality of how this all comes together. The fact that the media underreports, when they do report, the realities about how there is a huge intersection, not only for the ability to choose what are the choices that you want to make in your life as a Black woman, period, but the utter muting of stories that are around Black women being able to choose abortion or being able to make decisions for themselves that help impact whatever it is that they are going to lay out for their families. Abortion stories are null and void in the media. They pop up every once in a while like a magical unicorn. And when they do, people do 3 cheers because it's the one story for every 6 months. There's a huge problem with not communicating about a narrative that refuses to be muted.
And I want you to talk a little bit about that part, because without a narrative, you're getting a soundbite. And without a narrative, you are allowing the other side, who dominates the narrative every single day, with this other, to frame what abortion is, what abortion feels like, looks like, and is. And talk about like how we've suffered without a narrative from our side and what that's led to.
Well, without having a narrative from our side, Liz, it means that our story's not being heard. And anybody as a person without their story being heard is being basically invisibilized for lack of a better word. And that's completely bananas because it's really, really clear. I'm here. I'm a real person.
Thank you,
I should have
Marie.
the
Get us
ability to
hyped.
have my
Your
story
Packers.
heard. And if I don't have my story heard, it's a problem. Because that does not happen, it means that when there are opportunities for the media to actually give a space and a platform to allow the narrative about abortion access to be heard, when that does not happen repeatedly for years, for decades, for a very long time, it means that one of three things can happen. The ability to access abortion can fade away because people don't know how to defend what they don't know is a problem.
Right.
The second thing that can happen is that if and when the only things that are allowed to surface as far as feedback from people who are in the movement are coming from 2 to 3 people, the stories are always sounding the same. People are dealing with the attention span that is about 8 seconds long. Goldfish are beating us at this point. And if I keep on seeing the same person say the same thing without any counterpoint, then I begin to not pay attention. So
and you begin to think that's the truth.
And I begin to think it's the truth. And the third thing is that without being able to look at the intersectionality of the fact that there are wide swaths of people who look like me, who've had abortions, including myself, and finding myself always as an outlier means that it's really hard for me to connect. I can't find my community. And when I do want to reach out and find out where someone is that has my voice, I have to tune into the one story that came out 6 months ago. Another problem is that when you have people come in and they're pundits that are allowed to speak about a story that should have many voices, that is cross-sectional, that is intergenerational, that is anti-demographic, that is economic impact, when you are only allowed to have 2 to 3 people speak about that, and those people are not always the people who are saying it from something that sounds like me. The voices that are in the space don't sound like me. That's Therefore, right. I think my story is not valid. It is an invalidation of my humanity.
I think that is so true. And I want to go over to Marie on that, because when we talk about the invalidation of humanity and the intersections, we also, let me rephrase, if we don't talk about how we invalidate those things and that, we don't ever learn that together we're stronger. And Marie, I know, this is Marie, everybody shout out to Marie Khan, who is working with our
Marie,
managing our shit, who is working at the Midwest Access Coalition, also helping to do practical support for abortion. And Marie, you're the one I wanted to go to next, because when we talk about intersections, there's also the intersections of bullshit, right? And the intersections of bullshit, meaning people at the Capitol are the same people who are outside clinics. And I want you to talk a little bit about what that looks like and who these people are that are, because they're as monstrous. That behavior is not related just to the Capitol. It's also that behavior happens at the clinics.
Not at all. I've gone to March for Life with Abortion Access Front, with fellow escorts, clinic escorts, Abortion Fund, Practical Support Fund volunteers. And as we've seen, people that are prominent antis at clinics harassing folks got arrested for their actions on the 6th. And those of us that are escorts have seen the folks come up. Like, we're talking, we're like, oh, those are our folks from Ohio that decided to go over. Those are our folks from Kentucky. These are the very same folks that are parading Confederate flags around in a building that has not seen that for decades, centuries.
There's never been a Confederate flag inside the Capitol.
Inside the Capitol. These are the same folks that are showing up at clinics across the country, particularly clinics in many communities supporting majority Black and brown individuals. I escort up in the Bronx. These are the same folks that are up there unmasked, only acknowledging one true leader in a country, and that is their Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ.
And Donald Trump.
And Donald Trump. And they don't care if you have a hijab on. They don't care if you are telling them, leave me alone. They don't care if the language you are speaking does not match the language they know. They are simply there to try to convince you that you should not have an abortion, that you should give up your baby, that you should join their church, that you should assume that they are going to support this child for the next 18 years of its life. And those are the exact same types of folks that are in DC, that are harassing folks, that are trying to take down our country.
And you know, it's interesting to me because, Marie, I love those points, because the truth be told, they refuse to admit, they say that they canceled their march because of the worries of COVID-19. But let me tell you, from day one of COVID, these are the people who demanded freedom, refused any mandates, demanded their churches be open, and then also bus people outside the clinics so that they can shove their maskless maws up into the uteruses and spread disinformation and COVID to strangers. If they cared, they wouldn't have planned 100,000 person rally to begin with.
Your Packers.
This march isn't happening. The March for Climate Science isn't happening. People with rational thought said
the inauguration didn't really happen.
Yeah, we're not doing this year, right? So they're utterly full of shit. And then also, they also claim they put out these mea culpas about, oh, we don't condone violence. It's like, you've given a platform to violence at this march every year. And when you go bus people to people in front of clinics, go to college campuses and dismiss this hate. And Moji, it's these activists who are feeding politicians this crazy information, and then it's parroted through politicians as well. And Moji, everybody say hi to Moji.
Yes. Emoji.
AAF, and Moji is running our social media right now and just killing it and nailing it, and also doing our office management and just doing a million different things. But Moji, I know that one thing that super gets under your bonnet, a bee, or in your panties, or whatever the phrase is.
Definitely not in my panties.
All of when
in my
in a wad in your panties. That these local politicians are actually not only being fed by these anti-abortion extremists, they are now getting elected to office.
They're Marie talked about the people who are standing in front of clinics who are spreading this hate, but we found, even looking at people who are at the insurrection, that they were the same people who'd been doing the clinic attacking people for years, and then had recently gotten elected into office, and then went to fight against democracy. And we're finding that the people who go to the March for Life are people who've taken that route, but also they run churches, they teach children. They have so many levels where they're influencing how our society runs, how our society is governed, and truthfully, their misinformation, the lies that they spread, they get to spread. They are the story, right? They get to say, oh, we need to have this heartbeat bill because no one is thinking about the babies. And it's like, no, people think about the babies, but that's not a baby, it's a fetus.
Yeah.
Now, also, when we look at the intersectionality for that, years ago, right, there was TV shows like Cops, et cetera, that were taken down because the narrative around those stories allowed people to therefore make laws and hire in people that were oppressive. This is the same platform. And as you know, Liz, that ability to mimic what oppresses people in other corners is what the other side is really good at. And that playbook is being played out across the way that media allows these people to have spaces and therefore become elected and therefore continue with the oppression of stories and the people who need to hear the stories and the people who need to tell these stories.
Same right. And that is exactly right. And I think we find this in the way that they parrot legislation, the way that they really take over. They lead with these stories that sound heartbreaking, they create these terms that don't really exist. Late-term abortion is not a thing, right? No. But it sounds like a terrible thing. And if you take an actual medical procedure that helps people, and then you give it this name that makes it sound like a barbaric practice,
well, then there's a law for that.
The narrative, and then everyone is like, well, no, this sounds perfectly reasonable to make people carry fetuses that are not working to term. That makes a lot of sense.
And I would also say too, and this is the part that frustrates me the most, and this is why we're marching, because for the March for Life that we are protesting today started because the year after the passage of Roe v. Wade, and they're protesting because abortion became illegal. And from the moment the Supreme Court codified our right to abortion in this country, these people started marching and started with this rhetoric. And I want to ask anybody, what do you think 47 years of standing and saying to thousands and thousands and eventually millions of people that abortion doctors are ripping babies out of wombs, that Planned Parenthood is selling, even though there has been every investigation has said Planned Parenthood's not. The people that made the videos actually are fined millions of dollars and were charged with several offenses. They still repeat that. What do you think that does to a person who's there listening to this, getting more and more angry that these people are killing babies and that these people are selling the baby parts? What that does, is takes the doctor and the advocate for abortion and the person who has an abortion, turns them into barbarians, dehumanizes them, and gives them a moral right to harm those people. And that is where we are at right now in our society. And that is why it's so important for us to do this march, especially knowing that this big march, one of the things that the march and one of the things that the march sponsors also sponsor are these fake clinics that are all over the country. Jen, I know that you have traveled with us on the road. You have talked to providers who have been, and everybody say hi to Jen Moon, who is helps with all of our events. Jen, you've been on tour with us, and you have had really intimate conversations with so many of the providers that we service when they're on the road. Talk a little bit about how, and when we go out on the road and you're the person who's booking us, the problems that we have trying to access audiences, and how everybody moving virtually maybe will help us access more folks.
Yeah, I mean, we're going into these conservative markets most of the time, because those are the markets where, people need more support, and those are the markets that maybe it's like the only abortion clinic in the area, and they're indie abortion clinics. So, they're not like government funded or anything like that. They're surviving, and to just give them a little bit of love.
Definitely not in my panties.
Brought so much like meaning to booking these tours for abortion AF, and like it's heartbreaking to visit the clinics, because we'll do the comedy shows in order to like help build like a community that could possibly come and volunteer and give
these
support to these
Marie talked about the people
which,
who are standing in front
you
of
set up
clinics who are spreading this hate, but we found, even looking at people who are at the insurrection, that they were the same people who've been doing the clinic protesting.
How, they can't
the
even
clinic
talk to their families about what they
people
do
for years, and then had recently gotten elected
every
into
day
office,
they have to go
and
to
then
work
went
and
to
be
fight
shouted,
against democracy.
like,
And we're finding
the
that the people
ugliest
who go to
stuff
the
you can
March for
imagine.
Life
Could you
are people
imagine having to go to
who've
work
taken that
every
route, but
day,
also they run
doing
churches,
that,
they teach
hearing that,
children,
and
they have
and
so
then
many levels
even
where they're
when
influencing
there
how our
are
society runs,
things
how our
that
society is
they can
governed, and
complain about
truthfully,
to
their
the local
misinformation, the
authorities,
lies that
they're
they
not being
spread, they get
helped.
to
They're being
spread. They are
ignored,
the story,
on
right? They get to
purpose.
say, oh,
And
we need to have
and
this
then
heartbeat built
also
because no
then
one is
maybe
thinking
even
about the babies. And
misrepresented
it's like, no,
in the
people
local press.
think about the babies, but that's not a baby.
And
It's a fetus.
our shows
Fetus.
often at times, like, there'll be press that they don't feel comfortable covering it or something. Y'all had journalists come to the Oklahoma show that we did, saying that they wanted to cover the show, but their editors wouldn't let them. And there's just a number of suppressive factors that go into that. So being able to move into like a virtual space actually allows us to reach more people, and gain more momentum, and maybe also give these clinics some support that's just not in their local community, and really kind of spread the word about what's going on.
That is exactly right. And I think we find this in the way that they parrot legislation, the way that they really take over.
About
they lead with
all
these
the
stories
stuff
that
I've
sound
learned
heartbreaking. Like they
with
create these
abortion
terms that don't really exist.
They
The
don't
term
know,
abortion
and I
is
didn't know
not
either
a
before
thing,
I
right? But
started
it
working with
sounds
you guys,
like a
to be
terrible
honest. I
thing.
just thought
And if you
abortion was
take
like
an
a
actual medical
thing,
procedure that
I didn't
helps
think it was
people,
like this
and then you give it
big
this name that
issue,
makes it
and I
sound
was
like a
like,
barbaric
what?
practice,
And every
then you get to
video
control the
that
narrative,
I
and then
remember
everyone is
seeing,
like,
the
well,
first
no,
time I
this
ever
sounds
went to one of
perfectly
your
Ready
reasonable
for
shows,
you.
seeing
to
all
make
the
people
videos that you
carry
created,
fetuses
I
that
was
are
just
not
sitting, I
that
just
are not
remember
working
sitting
to
there
term.
and being
That makes
like,
a lot of sense.
what the heck is all this? This is real. This is
I'm
real laws
pleasing
and
you.
bills being passed. Like, it just seems very archaic in a way. And that's what really propelled me to start working with you guys and helping you gain allies in these cities, you know, whether it's through venues and promoters and trying to reach like the audiences that are supporters and really start making those indie clinics feel like they're not so alone. Because you're right, like the heartbreaking thing that also people have said is like nobody comes to visit us, nobody shows us any love, but you guys always show up and you're bringing them food, asking them what they need, and then, you know, I've been in there helping you plant, you know, plant barriers to the protesters as well. And then also seeing the protesters and just seeing how they're mostly men. And not only that, a lot of them seem like not educated, or they spout things like, I don't believe in science, which was a thing somebody said in when we were in Birmingham, Alabama. And I was just like, wow, this is real. Like, and
It was
yeah.
really, no, it's so true. And that leads really nicely into Jill. Jill Sobule's here, everybody. The wonderful
Yay.
Jill Sobule.
What's poppin', Jill?
Yes, and Jill, you've been out with us and done everything we've done. You helped us plant a garden in Minneapolis
Great.
at that clinic, and just to give you an idea of this clinic, it's this incredible clinic in a suburb of Minneapolis, and an anti-abortion extremist bought the house next door and erected not only a life-size crucifix, they have a deer stand. They have a deer stand that they stand on the deer stand so they can yell over the fence at the patients. And the clinic is under siege with every weekend with, you know, literally 100 people that have just given refuge to this anti-abortion house. And we helped them plant a garden. We helped them make their clinic beautiful. We had lunch with them. We broke bread with them, you know, helping them humanize their experience. But also, and then you performed at our shows, Jill, but also, and one of the reasons that I'm so glad you're here to sing us a song and talk a little bit as we gonna close out here in a hot second to go take on the march, we went in Pittsburgh to one of the clinics that the Knights of Columbus, who is the sponsor of the March for Life, gave this fake abortion center. There's 3,000 of them to our count around the country, and they are set up solely by religious organizations to their facades that look like actual clinics, looks like places that might help you. They
outnumber real clinics by 4.
They outnumber real clinics by 4 times. There's about around 800 real clinics. And they coerce people through advertising to think they're going to come in and get advice. And if people are seeking abortion, they're lied to by somebody who's dressed up as a fake doctor in a coat, told lies about abortion, told lies about their own pregnancy. A person who's not a medical person is giving them an ultrasound. And it's horrifying. So we went to confront them in Pittsburgh. And Jill, talk to me a little bit about that experience, because you were talking to the executive director and having a whole thing with that person.
Oh yeah. Well, I thought I'd go inside. You know, I'm one of those that believes that everyone's a good person inside. So I wanted to go and just try to reason with them and talk to them and go, well, like, you know, okay, you're against abortion, so why not just be honest and say what kind of clinic you really are, not clinic, what you really are. And then just talking to him within 5 minutes, you realize this is QAnon, like batshit crazy people.
Yeah.
Right? Like I had the best intentions, and there was no reasoning with them. I'm like, you know, well, okay, yeah, I can understand. Well, what about birth control? So there's less abortions. And they were, you know, that. So
Hypocritesunmasked.com.
That approach didn't really work that well.
But I was really inspired by that, because that question that you asked out of sheer wonder, which is, why don't you just say who you are?
Right.
And the reason that they can't is because they don't have an agenda that is helpful to the person coming in. They only have one agenda. And so if somebody's looking for an abortion and they go there, they're not going to go in. If they know the place doesn't provide abortion, they want to try to talk them out of it. So they have to be deceptive because it's the only way that they can honor their one thing, which is getting their way. And so that is, and this March for Life, just so you know, just to give you an example of how nuts this is, the biggest sponsor is the Knights of Columbus of this march that we are protesting. They have given over $46 million in ultrasound machines to these fake clinics around the country and sponsor and help keep them open. It's astounding. And so what we're doing today, before we get you, Jill, to play us out, just want to remind you that their speeches start at noon. If you haven't already, we want you to go, and we're going to put it right in our social media right now. Go to share.aafront.org/march, and you can get your own march poster, one of the ones that's framing us. You can get that, and that will surround you. And then you will sign up and be part of the actual march, so you can scroll that wall and see all the beautiful faces who are joining you. And then you'll be sent a toolkit, or you can just go to the website. What's the website again that we're telling people to go to?
It's
Is it right here on my head?
right. It's
Hypocrites Unmasked. And there's a toolkit there, and you can get all kinds of graphics and fact sheets and tweets, and you can help throughout their whole march. We're going to be taking over their hashtag, and we are going to be combating the lies with truth. And we are going to be putting forth all kinds of good information, abortion positive information, and we're going to be doing it. And the media, damn it, better take notice. So,
media, is this a story?
Hello, this might be a story. We are rallying, and like any good rally, we have some dope music. And so we are going to have Jill Sobule play us a song. Jill, what are you going to play for us today?
Well, I think you know what I'm going to play. You asked me to play Underdog Victorious.
Yes,
so
I did, because the underdogs will be what? Victorious. Jill, take it off.
Was a fat little boy living in his shitty little town. And every recess the dodgeball flew and knocked poor Bobby down. 4 o'clock when he got home, upstairs in his room, he closes the cape, put on his cape, put on his skin-tight suit, and he'd sing, Underdog Victorious. He was simply glorious. Someday he'll die notorious. Underdog Victorious. A couple years later, tried out for the band. Did come as a Matchbox 20, but he was dreaming of the New York Stars and Max's Kansas City. Of course, they never called him back. They thought he was too queer, but he didn't care. Back in his room, he sang into the mirror. Everybody on mute. Underdog Victorious. He was simply glorious. Someday he'll die notorious. Underdog Victorious. Oh yeah. La 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 la. Underdog. La 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 la. He could see into the future. That was one of his great gifts. And one day all those dodgeball bullies would sing, dream of his sweet kiss, and he'd sing like a bad 80s arena rock show. Come on.
Yes.
1, 2, motherfucker, 3, 4. Underdog Victorious. Yeah. He was simply glorious. Someday he'll die notorious. Underdog Victorious.
to take us into the rally. Go get your sign. You can find out where to get that on Twitter. Just stick with us, help amplify, because this is the time, this is the day, this is our moment to decide that we are going to drive the narrative. We're going to force the narrative, and we are going to reclaim the narrative and center the people who need to be centered in this conversation, and demand that we hold accountable these extremists for the harm they're doing, just like we're holding accountable the same people at the Capitol. Why? Because they're the same people.
Yep.
So we're
Make
so
sure you
excited to see you at the rally. Come and say hi to us on the Twitters. We'll be retweeting and sharing and doing. You can you can watch the March for Life. We'll put where that is. And we are just so excited.
You surf the magical wave of great content, love that we're going to have.
We're going to have so much content. It's going to be the best it's going to be the best counter protest ever. And you're going to learn a lot. But just remember, these people are in your government. They run your government. They influence your government, and they stand every single day in some kind of way and promote a hatred that harms your neighbors. And that shit's got to stop. And let's make it stop, and start making it stop today. See you at the march. Thank you, Marie.
Hey, I'm gonna be there.
Also, Kick It Out Live. We are going to come. We, if not innovative, are going to close this whole thing out with an abortion sea shanty song. That's right. We did it. Sea shanty, but make it about abortion with Tina Schlieski. Take that away. Bye, everybody.
The cries of the orcs that storm DC is give me my freedom and none for thee. When they stand up, we won't stand down, singing blow me, bully boys, blow me. So when the yelling men come and beat their bigoted sexist drum, show them that the feminists won and shut these fuckboys down. When they aren't planning a civil war at clinics, they chant dirty whore, militiamen, abortion foes, violence are their pros. Huh. So when the yelling men come and beat their bigoted sexist drum, show them that the feminists won and shut these fuckboys down.